So right now, y'all, we're just waiting on our tour guide before we hit these beautiful streets. It's gonna be a really historic moment. About to get educated and about to enjoy ourselves. Hopefully we get us a good bite while we at it. The family up in the building. Who we got today? What's up, Mari? We got baby girl. Hey! Got mommy over here. What's up, C? Chilling. Danny in the cut. Yeah, man, it's gonna be a vibe out here.
You guys enjoying it?
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, so I've been a subscriber since day one. How many? What's up with you? Hello. Boom. Boom.
Good afternoon.
So I'll be your guide for the city tour. So my name is Marie, but you guys can call me Marie. And my surname is January. You guys are also going to learn why I'm named January. It's quite a common surname here, and it's directly linked to our early colonial history. So things we'll see is we'll walk past the High Court, former race classification board. So that's where we'll touch on some of the so-called scientific tests that was done there during the apartheid years. Then we'll walk through the company gardens for a little urban safari. Have you guys seen an albino squirrel? We have 7 albino squirrels there.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah, a little urban safari, and then we'll walk past the parliament, what's left of it. I don't know if you guys heard of the fire, no? But you'll see our National Assembly was set on fire in 2022. Yeah, so you'll see the damage. Then we'll walk past Church Square, where we'll touch on the Indian Ocean slave trade.
Okay.
So that's where you guys will learn the significance of my surname. And yeah, that's basically the plan. The biggest issue we have is the chain snatchers, the necklaces.
Man, they got them boy out there. Them boy want out necklace. I don't got nothing on me.
Yeah, but I think you'll be fine, don't worry. They go for the gold and the silver.
Man, we paid big bucks for that tooth, man. He love it though, he love it. He love that, he love that.
If they want to steal, they're going to steal her.
Oh man, gotta get her back then. We have to get her back.
You guys just enjoy it.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's like the literal biggest problem we have. They don't go for the watches and stuff so much because you can grab their arms, but the chains you can just yank and run. And I don't know if you guys saw when we came out of city sightseeing, there's people with boards, cash for gold. No.
I don't think I caught me one.
Oh yeah, so it's basically, but every corner there's a place to exchange it as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's almost
That's
like
why
they advertise for it, yeah.
they get rid of it quick.
Yeah, and they even swallow it these days. So.
Woo!
Yeah, but other than that, it's not too bad,
Gotcha.
Yeah, so guys, this is Green Market Square before we head on out of the sun here. So this is the second oldest public square in the country, and it's the oldest market square. Okay. So it gets its name from the company gardens that we're heading through now. So the fruit and the vegetables they grew in the garden, they came and they traded it here. So hence it's called Green Market Square. So originally you could get anything from elephant tusks, rhino horns, marijuana. You can still get some things, ivory. So it's a good place to buy gifts and souvenirs. You must negotiate a bit, gotta haggle.
Yes, man.
So well worth a pop in if you have some extra time around town as well. So Methodism came here with English soldiers that were stationed here in the 1800s. Today though it's quite an important church in the city. They have great initiatives with the unhoused people. You guys will see as we walk, we have a big issue with that. So the church is basically an open door sanctuary. They can nap on the benches, use the facilities. They also have Narcotic Anonymous meetings and AA meetings free for the public to attend. And then they're also very welcoming to the LGBTQ plus community. That's why the pride flag is on the other side of the door. And on this side it says, "You are born in love, by love, for love." So Cape Town is seen as the pink capital of Africa. So hence the city, the churches around town has also become very inclusive. You guys will see as we walk past the Anglican church now, they also have a pride flag from their pole. But as with most things, mainly the city centers. And then you see there's also a coffee shop attached to the church, Heaven. Yeah, apparently people are dying to get in there.
So that's the thing though, like when I first looked at it, I didn't look at it as a church because I seen Heaven Coffee.
Yes.
So I thought it was like a coffee shop. I heard the jazz playing.
No, it's a functional church, but then it has the coffee shop inside as well.
Gotcha,
And it's also one of the few black-owned coffee shops in the CBD area.
Shout out,
well
shout
worth
out.
to grab a coffee there. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Sienna, what you wait? Why you got that over your head like that? Just too sunny. These buildings are blocking out all the sun.
Before the rain comes.
Right. We seen that. That's why we had to book you. We had to book you for the storm come.
Yeah.
Look at the mountains, man. The Mandela Road building.
Hey guys, this lovely pedestrian walkway is called St. George's Mall because it's named after St. George's Cathedral, the Anglican church across the street.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is also known as the People's Cathedral for the role they played back in apartheid. So that is the church where Archbishop Desmond Tutu was inaugurated in as the first black Archbishop of the Anglican Church, which is, you know, the highest nomination of the church in the country. So since then, the church sort of became, you know, a symbol against resistance against apartheid. It would be a place where protests would start from, where activists would gather and have their meetings in, because, you know, the church was considered holy ground.
Right.
And the one thing that the apartheid government truly prided themselves in was being God-fearing Christians.
Right.
So they couldn't arrest the activists when they were in the church, you know, they had to wait for them around the corners, things like that.
They were coming, how many numbers? Like how many people would gather here before they were protesting?
The last protest that was held here was very late in apartheid. It was in September 1989. So it was a few days before the election of that year. And at that protest, there was 30,000 people in attendance.
Yo,
yeah,
that's a number for you.
So that was the last big memorable protest that left from here. They nicknamed it the Purple Rain Protest after the Prince song. Other than that, it has no relation to Prince.
So I was like
or
Prince,
the song.
Purple Rain, right? Okay.
Yeah, but it has no relation to him. Just that the timeline of the protest and the song being released was sort of, you know, around the same time. So why they called it this is because the crowd was too big for the police to disperse or arrest everyone.
Gotcha.
So then what they do still today in cases like this is they bring in the water cannons. This day they took it further, so they added purple dye into the water. Yes. So once they spray the crowd, if you have a purple mark on you, you could be walking in a whole different suburb, but they can arrest you because clearly you were here at the protest. So quite a clever scheme of theirs.
But they try to mock them by hitting them with the purple.
Yes.
Even though they was calling it Purple Rain, kind of, you know.
Yes,
yeah.
So that's where the name comes from then, because of the purple spray, So one brave protester managed to make it past the police and on top of the water cannon. So then he turned it back onto the police and everyone. The next day there was graffiti all over town saying the purple shall govern, which was a clever play on words on the first chapter of the ANC's Freedom Charter, the people shall govern. A piece of the Berlin Wall. So east side of the wall, plain, so if people manage to make it across for easier targeting. And then the graffiti from the west side of the wall. So how we got the wall here, it was gifted to Nelson Mandela when he went on an international tour after he became the first democratic president. So he went on a state visit to Germany and then they gifted him this piece of wall over here.
Amazing.
And then he chose this placement himself, you know, because of the proximity of the People's Cathedral.
Right.
And that the city centers were the most segregated areas. So, you know, it's like a symbol of freedom. And the wall fell in 89, and that's basically when the transition from apartheid started as well.
With South Africa and Germany. I never put it all together. Like, I know we're all under a caste system, but I never put that.
Yeah, a lot of the acts were neo-Nazi inspired as well during the apartheid.
I ain't gonna much lie, that is an amazing gift.
It is.
Like to say after all the destruction and stuff, and then they did that, that's fine.
How we're all connected.
Yeah.
It makes me think of the movie Origins.
Origins.
And last one is my favorite. They'd be surprised at the people we find in heaven. God has a soft spot for sinners. His standards are quite low. So, you know, if the art says that, I believe him. So, yeah, we good to go. So every Wednesday at noon, there's a protest on the stairs in support of Palestine as well. And they have the flag there. So these stained glass windows in this middle section, these were redone a few years ago, more than a decade ago already. And this is now basically showing a more reformed, inclusive fashion. As you can see, they have the brown Jesus over there now. And then if you look at the second last one, it looks like a black guy embracing a white lady. You see there? Yeah. This is now, so Mary and Jesus sculpted in Europe, but then gifted to yeah. And then this quilt is an HIV quilt. So the names on there, those are the first people to pass away of the HIV virus, and it's made with pieces of their blankets and clothing.
Wow.
Yes, and internationally as well, yeah. So Demouchet also had an HIV foundation as well. As you know, we still have a very high rate of that.
Watch your step, okay?
Mortal remains of Archbishop Tutu has been placed under this tile here. So he was cremated.
And you say he's under the tile here?
Yes.
Wow.
So this is a high court today, functional high court. The entrance is all the way on Long Street where we started our walk. Historically, this was the race classification board from 1960 till 1991. So people had to come here for tests to see what racial grouping they fit into. So not everyone had to come here. Only the so-called doubtful cases had to come here. So the people which they weren't sure, are you white or are you passing for white? So I'll get to the test in a moment, but just to backtrack a little bit, so we were Dutch colony from 1652 up until officially 1806. Then the English took over. Then in 1834, the English abolished the slave trade here. And then after, the slave trade was basically inequality and segregation, but living side by side with mixed race relationships. 1867, the diamond was found. 10 years after the diamonds were found, the gold was found. As a result of this, we have the Anglo-Boer War between the English and the Dutch descendants of the slave. So this was basically a war, over money.
Yeah.
So during the Boer Wars, the Afrikaners basically lost the economic wealth of the country. Through the English, a lot of their farmlands, things like that was destroyed. And then the gold and the diamond rushes, this also brought an influx of cheap black labor to South Africa. Because, at the States, the slave trade was abolished, so they needed extra cheap black labor. So the fear for the Afrikaners was the growing black population. They started using the term die swart gevaar, which means the black peril, the black danger. So they were literally getting scared of a population, going extinct. And then they wanted to at least get political power back from the English. So 1948's election, there was two parties basically, the United Party, the Nationalist Party. So the Nationalist Party won the election through preaching segregation and spreading fear. And also because only a handful of our people were allowed to vote, more specifically white males. So they came into power in 1948 and set about creating a society where Afrikaner control would become permanent in their own sort of form of white supremacy through political separation as well as complete segregation between black and white. So you see that bench says non-whites only. So this would have been as a result of the Separate Entities Act. So everywhere there'd be a whites only entrance, a non-whites entrance, the train stations, the buses, everything would have been segregated.
And everything else was non-white?
Yes.
It wasn't all the colors, just non-white?
Just non-white, like that bench there. You can have a look there. So yeah, so the reason I said people had to come here was, like I said, the doubtful cases. So the people which they weren't sure if they're white or they were passing for white. Now a lot of these, you can sit here. You want to sit here?
We can sit now.
You can sit here. Stay down.
Look, Tiana. Hi.
A lot of these were in my so-called colored community. So, okay, we didn't go in chronological order with this tour now. So, basically, you know, colored refers to someone that comes from a mixed background here in South Africa. And how we got here is basically the Indian Ocean slave trade, which we're still gonna get to.
Right.
So, a mixture between the East Africans, the Southeast Asians, you know, the Europeans, so quite a mixed masala. So some colored people, they can pass for white. You've got the guys with the green eyes, the light hair, you know, the works. So those people which they weren't sure, are you white or are you passing for white? They had to do the test.
Wow.
So how it worked was, there was a judge, there were civilians, you know, all white people.
Right.
And then they conducted scientific tests. But, you know, no actual science were used. So firstly, they do research about your family background. Language was very important, so they test your Afrikaans, your English, how you wrote, how you spoke. Your social status came into play, how much money you had. Your etiquette was measured, because good table manners are a sign that you are white and not non-white. And then if none of those tests were sufficient enough, the last test they did was the pencil test.
Say it one more time.
Pencil test.
Pencil test. She getting deep, y'all. Keep going.
Have you guys heard of the pencil test?
With the pencil in your hair.
Yeah, so they ask
She
you to
getting
take a pen
deep,
or
yeah.
a pencil, place it in your hair, you know, bounce. So if the pen fell out of your hair, you of course had flowy straight hair, so you're either classified as white or Asian. If the pen was stuck in your hair, you'd either get classified as colored or Bantu. So naturally these were not scientific tests, but those were the tests they did. There was initially 4 races, then there was more than 6. So originally it was white, Asian, colored and Bantu. Then it became white, Asian, Indian. So Indian now gets a separate category, largely because of Gandhi, which is highly controversial here as well, but we don't have time for Gandhi. Colored, which had subcategories as well, because we're not all the same people, but we were all put in the same category. So my dad's old ID just said Cape Colored, which basically just refers to a mixed background. And then you have the Cape Malays, which are like the guys in the Bo-Kaap, which are more to their East Asian ancestry. So there's subcategories as well. And then Bantu was what they refer to the black native tribes, the Zulus, the Xhosas. So, because the natives were seen as non-citizens. So after they've now classified who was white and who was non-white, it made provisions to the carrying of a passport. Yeah. So now the reason, like I said, that's the test they did here. So after they've now classified who was the whites, who was the non-whites, they further went and made a hierarchy between the non-white races. Now that was simply divide and conquer. That's why they created a category as colored, you know, in 1944 and made people register as colored. Yeah, and the divide and conquer was done so well that today still there's racial tension between non-whites as well. Because, you know,
All of the non-whites, like the colors and...
yeah, there's still slight tension as well. Because, you know, it's extremely easy to offend someone if you don't understand their culture.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And we really do not understand each other's cultural differences. Only the minority that's living in the city and the suburbs, you know, they get along for the most part. But if you go out to the rural side of the country, the small villages, you know, the farm areas, there everyone still pretty much sticks to the apartheid spatial planning areas. Yeah. So that's why it took us that much longer to mobilize, because we were fighting each other instead of the system. Yeah, so very clever scheme of this. So how this hierarchy worked was, it basically came into play when it came to education, higher education, employment. So they basically had a sort of quota system. You know, like how Elon Musk is now saying that we have more race laws than there was back in apartheid. So anyhow, they had these, you know, these race laws where they took, you know, They took the majority of Asian people, Indian people. Then they would take a little bit more colored people. Then they would Bantu people, and then the 80% of the population was the lowest on the hierarchy. The same when it came to employment, laborers, workers. Because the majority of colored people speak Afrikaans, today we are the majority and only 40% of the others are, so to say, white Afrikaners. So because of the knowledge of Afrikaans, they would much rather work with a so-called colored person than they would a Bantu person. So the 80% remained the lowest on the hierarchy. So that's why people would pass for different things. So you had Bantu people that would pass for colored, so they could have a slightly better time. And the only thing you needed as a Bantu to pass for a colored was you had to speak and understand Afrikaans very well. So what they would do then is they would move from the Eastern Cape to the Northern Cape or to the Western Cape and change their surnames to Afrikaans surnames like Grootboom, things like that.
Right.
The same went for the light-skinned colored people. I don't know if you saw by the bench here. 518 colored people were reclassified from colored to white. Now that is a very small amount of people if you take it throughout 48 years of apartheid, because it wasn't very easy, even though you look very white, to just walk off the street and to be white. You had to have pretty deep pockets, so you basically had to pay to be white. So it was quite a corrupt system as well. So only the 580 afforded to be reclassified. There were much more people passing for white than that could afford to get reclassified.
I guess they knew what was benefiting the people, so they wanted to be on that side.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then one white person, yes, was reclassified from white to colored.
Is it the little girl that they made a movie about?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Sandra Lane, yes. Skin. The movie is called Skin, yeah. This is exactly her that they are referring to, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
history is that close, literally.
Yeah. And you saw that movie.
Yeah, I saw it like a decade ago, and I didn't put together that it was about South Africa because I didn't know much of South African history. We don't learn it in school. We learn who Nelson Mandela is, but we don't learn y'all history. So it's kind of difficult to make the connection.
So either one or two things could have happened there. So it could have been a recessive gene that the parents had African ancestry in them. Because in the early slave trade years, the enslaved community outnumbered the free burghers by 1 to 3 at some stage. So there was a lot of intermixing happening within the early slave trade years, especially within, what is now the Afrikaans white community. There's this joke in this book called The Racist Guide to South Africa.
Oh,
Not me, it's the book. In the book they say there, the Afrikaners like to say that they tan easily. Yeah. Yeah, so it could have been, a recessive gene, or it could have been that her grandparents or so were these colored people that were passing for white and that they were not very forthcoming about their racial background. But there's a few cases like that, where people will tell you they're a certain race and you'll be like,
yeah.
that's how you identify, because things got pretty mixed up with the system over here. And the worst part would have literally been that it literally tore families apart.
Yes.
That there would have been cases that siblings could be made different to each other because, it was such superficial test.
Right.
So if the people had money, they would appeal the system. If not, then, they'd find ways to play around the system, homeschool the children. Or, when they walk out in public, they'd hire a domestic worker or a nanny that looks more similar to the child. So that if the police approach them, they can say, it's their child, they're just spending the day with them or whatever. Yeah, so they would find ways like that to play around with.
Okay. Yo. Yeah, that's her. Yes, sir. Shout out. Danny, what is that? What kind of duck is that? Don't scare it, Danny. Don't scare it. An Egyptian goose.
They're smelling for peanuts. So the vendors, they sell peanuts and we feed them peanuts. The geese as well, as you can see, they come. Everyone is used to getting food here.
Oh Lord, they coming for real too. The more big steppers.
scared. They let you walk past the goslings and everything.
Go ahead, man. Give yourself a shout out. What's your YouTube channel, bro? What's your Instagram?
They didn't get the memo about the peanuts and the bird food.
Not you pretending.
Hey, wait, look. Yeah. What's your issue? So guys, welcome to the company garden. This is the company garden now. So the company that the garden is talking about, oh nice car, is the Dutch East Indian Trading Company. So, but they basically started this garden when they came here in 1652. They brought seedlings because you know they needed to start farming to feed themselves, supply the ships passing the Cape here. First attempts at farming went horribly, you know. The weather is very different from the northern hemisphere. But eventually things took off once they started digging the water canals to bring the water down. Yeah. But the English basically turned it into what it is now, a pleasure garden. So they imported trees from all around the world, different provinces, different Commonwealth countries. Like you saw that massive tree as we came in, that's an Australian ficus. So most of these trees are not from Cape Town. The tallest tree we would have had here would have been a silver tree, literally this height. That's why the nickname for the indigenous tribes were the Bushmen, because that's what they hid behind. Fame bush is what they hid. So that's why when the wind blows, the trees go. Big issue in winter. Let's go up here. We had pose, but wrong arm. So yeah, he's not hailing. He's supposed to point north, which is not where he's pointing now. But yeah, it says your hinterland is there. So he was the guy that wanted to, you know, conquer the entire Africa for the British Empire, all the way from Cape Town to Cairo. He got as far as Rhodesia, which naturally he named after himself, Rhodes, Rhodesia, modern day Zimbabwe. That's also where he lays to rest. So you guys can now take the luxurious Robus train all the way from Cape Town to Livingstone in Zimbabwe, or even as far up as Tanzania. So yeah, full train ride. So this is the most unpopular colonial statue we have around town.
Right.
So we have a lot of other statues you see as we're walking, and they're pretty much chilling because you know we have a lot of social issues. The students have been leading the Wait. So he's the same guy from the Rhodes Scholarship. I'm not sure if you guys heard of the international scholarship, the Rhodes Scholarship now. So anyhow, founder of it. So the wording of the document was apparently still specific to white male leaders. So that's what started the hashtag Rhodes Must Fall at Oxford in England, spread here to South Africa. Was our biggest student protest since fees must fall, Rhodes must fall. So the only place they managed to remove him from was from the University of Cape Town. And then the only thing that was left there, they drew an outline on the floor in chalk of how the shadow was cast there, like, you know, a body outline. Then they tried to chop him down by his Achilles heel. Let me show you guys his Achilles heel. They tried. They did. Yeah, by his Achilles heel.
Yeah, they tried for real.
But the garden team, the restaurant was still open, so they called the police and they stopped them.
All them fish pulling up on my man's, bro.
Look like they know me.
Yes, sir. So you speak squirrel and fish, huh? You speak squirrel and fish.
I wish you could go closer.
Yeah, I think that was close enough. Look, they feeding the pigeons look like over there. Yeah, he feeding the pigeons over there.
Yeah,
Oh, this is the closest we've been to a Adidas bird. Nah, I know what they call. I be joked out, bro. Don't do it. Don't do it. He chilling. I like what they did though.
It's cool that you can literally just plant some stuff here.
Watch your step. Watch your step.
Oh no. This is chilling.
Oh no! It's another horny dog. So guys, this is a tiny remake of how the Dutch farm would have run. Irrigation, you know, the water would run from the mountain into the front and then it would directly feed the garden. So
That
at
is
least the enslaved
genius,
people
though.
didn't have to, you know, water the massive farm by hand. And then they could grow different crops at the same time as well. So a very clever farming system here. You
Yep.
can smell the rosemary. It's good, yeah.
Is this mint?
Oh, you smell him? You smell it?
Oh, that's
You
It's
have to put it on
potent.
your hands
It's real
and
potent too, though.
then you get it. If you rub your fingers on it.
oh.
Yeah, you
Them
see
things
that it's
strong. Look, put your hand underneath mommy nose. Mommy love to cook.
Hello, how are you? Good, we chilling. Okay, yeah. These things, they breed like crazy. They have like 8 to 10 goslings multiple times a year.
Ooh.
They loud, they poop everywhere. Very problematic.
Yeah, I'm not eating none of one of y'all peppers. Had me up in here. Look, need some water.
Sandy, you should stay up here.
Watch your step. Watch your step.
Makes it made out of bushes would be cool.
Yep, yep. Be back there all day.
They do.
And oh my god!
Look, Sienna, more little people.
I guess they grade ours here.
Uh-huh.
Pigeons. So the first war the South African soldiers took part in was World War I. We were on the side of the English crown. 3,000 men left South Africa. 1,700 black, forcefully, obviously they were sent, and then 1,300 white. Of these 3,000 people, 755 survivors came back. Yeah. Technically they weren't soldiers, they were part of what was called the labor corps, because you know they wouldn't give the black soldier, the people, weapons. So yeah, so they were formed part of the labor corps, the ones that was digging the trenches, you know, carrying the bodies, things like that. So each tick is an individual name, the date they passed away as well. You'll
Wow.
see, you see Solomon Yana's 5th April 1917. So each
Wow.
stick represents a person.
Love what they did here too.
Yeah.
Wow. Love this.
Yeah, finally, this is only from February this year.
Oh, this year.
Yes, this year, February. That one's been there for almost like 100 years, but yeah, this is from February. Very new.
Ooh.
Yeah, I guess wherever they, you know, fell, they that's where they were buried. Yeah, who have no known graves.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh.
So much respect.
Yes.
There's one of the albinos all the way at the top. I see.
Oh, there it is right now.
He's very far. Where's all the others? Oh, he has one closer. I didn't even see him.
Do these walk up to us too or no?
They do, yeah.
Let's go see an albino squirrel. She told y'all.
Now I know
People
albino.
think I lie because we don't see them.
Now I know albino crocodiles, alligators, and squirrels.
Oh, snap. Oh. Why they look stronger?
This one not too much anyway. It's like a rat with the fluffy tail. I know.
Oh my god! Oh my god, he grabbed my arm.
Oh Lord. Look at
There they come. There they come.
Tease me with food. I'm coming seriously. Another one here, third one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Butter chain.
Yeah, they got some on the grass over here.
Did you want to go on your backpack?
Mother, follow me. Mom, look behind you.
There you go.
There you go. There you go.
Look, Mama, look that one. Okay, okay. Oh, they eat that
Okay,
too?
okay, give it to the pigeon.
Everything, even the geese, they eat the peanuts as well.
Just put it down.
Please. Why they got look, Mama, put it. Why are all of the pigeons holding it up to me? Why me?
Supposed to be out because all these birds.
Oh, Mama.
Oh Lord, careful, Sienna, careful. Go ahead. Hey, it's okay. We pay for it. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Is her nose clean?
I wanted to.
Yeah, I want the food.
You have the food.
Y'all have food, babies. Y'all gotta feed them.
I wanted to feed.
Oh, these gonna come for real. Hey, listen, I'm the cameraman. Come on, Danny. Danny. Oh! Y'all didn't tell me y'all didn't tell me they did all that.
No, Danny, run, bro.
Come on, Danny.
Oh my God. The bird was in my face.
Hold on, hey, watch his face, watch his face. How we get a refund? No, I'm joking, I'm joking. See, did you kiss the bird?
I got attacked by the bird.
Look like you kissed the bird.
Why did it have to be us?
Here.
I just wanted to. Something wrong with my face.
What happened?
Really?
You have a mark.
It's little legs.
Did
All
you
in my face.
look her face?
Yeah, I see it's bad.
Oh no, it went away. It went away.
Oh, okay.
It went away. But
I
you do
hope
have
it
like a
ain't
little.
poop.
Ooh. Man. All right, let's do round 2 before we go.
I do it.
Oh shoot.
No.
Just relax, y'all. Just relax. Just relax. Relax.
Y'all just throw the whole bag on.
Just put the bag down. Sienna, you not playing no more? You don't like this game? Let me see, baby. Let me see.
Back to the squirrels.
No, let me see.
No.
Look, you got.
Go to the squirrels, y'all.
I dropped my bag. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna go by the pigeons, y'all. I mean the squirrels.
I thought he's not going to be a lot.
And Sienna just did that smoothly. She just threw it like.
Look in the albino. Yeah. They got an albino squirrel behind the bench.
Basically, technically, it's the president's office today, yeah. So this started off as the governor of the Cape's home. He's that guy in the circle there in front of the green doors. And then you see it's holding the old company banner. It says VOC in the center, so that is the Dutch for the East Indian Trading Company. And then this also played a very important role during the apartheid negotiations. This is where our last apartheid president, F.W. de Klerk, and Nelson Mandela had their negotiations, and there was a very overshared photo of the two of them sharing a cup of tea on the porch. So that is the porch they had their tea time on. And it's at that very green doors that the Claire came walking out in 1989 and made the announcement that we will now be closing the chapter on apartheid.
Look, it's right there.
It's right there, yeah. So today it is the president's office. So when he is in Cape Town, he will be working from the Thames.
Yes, ma'am.
And then there's the damage to the National Assembly. So it was set on fire intentionally. It was arson. But it's a very dodgy story. There's one man being charged, a homeless man. Sole perpetrator for burning down the entire National Assembly.
Wow.
The fire alarm was turned off. The CCID cameras outside. So very resourceful homeless man. So you guys see this archway we're walking through now? So this is called the Arch for Arch because it was a gift for Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And it's next to the church here. It has 14 strands which represents the 14 chapters of our constitution. And then as with most good modern structures, if you scan over here, it has free Wi-Fi. But as with most things, it's not working now.
Oh man.
You'll see there'll be much more people with their cell phones over here.
Yo.
And then over here they wrote down the preamble of the Constitution, the foreword. But they sadly stole the plaques now for scrap metal.
What?
Yeah, we have a big problem with the scrap metal industry. They steal the manhole covers, everything. Yeah. Yeah, he's up there. You don't see now. So how are you guys doing? Are you still good
Yes, ma'am.
to walk? Because I wanted to show you just still the city hall downtown where Mandela gave his first speech. And then we can come back.
Okay.
I know we are a little bit over. All right.
Okay, that's fine.
And then our favorite Spice Girl, Vicky, is standing over there. Queen Victoria. She's standing there because she was the one that gave permission for Parliament to be built when we went to British colony. All the pretty red bricks, the light fixtures, all imported from London.
Wow.
And then this guy, he was the last Prime Minister of South Africa before the move to the apartheid government. So he was with the United Party, but you know, he was a typical politician. He wasn't as bad as the National Party guys, but he was also quoted saying that natives has no place in politics.
Yeah.
So he still saw white men as superior. After he lost the election, you know, then he had a different tune. So like I said, a good politician at the time. We're walking past the slave market. Yeah. So this is directly where the enslaved people held by the company that was owned by the East Indian Company. This is where they were held, inside that building. So that it would be close to the farm, which we just walked through now. So I also have a walk and talk. So our slave trade was more similar to the American one, where people were taken from different places and brought here. So they didn't use the indigenous tribes for two reasons. The koi and the sand that was originally around the Western Cape here, they were nomadic hunters and gatherers. And the one clear instruction that the Jan van Riebeeck guy had sent to start the station was he had to leave the indigenous tribes. So then what happened was, in 1658, a Dutch ship known as the Amersfoort, making their way back to South Africa, ran into a Portuguese slave ship.
Okay.
And then they robbed that Portuguese ship of the first 200. So that is ultimately what started the slave trade.
Okay.
Then they also tried to go to West Africa because, you know, the goal was to get the strongest people. But then they got in conflict with the Dutch West Indian Company, the one going to the Americas, because these were two entities. So then the rest of our people then came from the Indian Ocean
Okay.
instead of the Atlantic Ocean. So yeah, so this is a remembrance for the slave auction tree.
Slave auction.
Slave auction tree, yes, yeah. Oh wow. So ironically, the slave trade happened right on the church's doorstep. As you can see in that picture is the original church over there. And then look across the road, the grey building, that is a rebuild from 1841. So that is the oldest church in South Africa. It's called the Grote Kerk, which means the Great Church. It's a Dutch Reformed church. And ironically, on the church's doorstep, the slave trade took place. So if there are an excess of enslaved people in the company, they would sell them over here. Not to go to different countries, but internally to work on the farms, domestics, things like that. So the enslaved people basically came from East Africa. So as far as Mauritius, Zanzibar, Ethiopia, Madagascar, Mozambique. And then once they arrived in the colony, the first thing they did was they removed their religious items and they gave them new names. Because it's a lot easier to control someone if you dehumanize them. So those two little granite blocks across the streets have some of the names on them. But for time, I'll just explain it from here. So they give them Dutch names or Christian names. They name them after their physical features. For example, there's a lady there called Klein Eva, which means small Eve. And next to small Eve is Groot Catherine, Big Catherine. So they would give them names like that. And then their surnames would be Van, which means from in Dutch. Van Madagascar, Van Mozambique, Van Bengal, simply where they came from originally. Later on, they simply started naming people according to the month that the ship arrived in the colony. So if the ship came in January, the people on the ship was named January.
Oh,
So yes, so
now we're
hence
talking.
my family surname still today being January.
Wow.
Luckily, I was also born in January, so.
I was gonna ask that way early, but I didn't want to. But I know now. I know now.
Yeah, my sister married in October, so they are now October. So we have all of the months of the year here, and yeah, this is how we got our surnames basically.
Oh man.
So this history basically is where the Cape Coloured community comes from the Indian Ocean slave trade. So one of the first things the men from the ships would do after this very long journey at sea is come take advantage of some of the ladies in the slave lodge for, let's call it home cooking. This was a way to increase the enslaved population and make more enslaved people. So naturally our early history here is quite a melting pot. Yeah. So the majority of us, except for the Cape Malays, like the guys in the Bo-Kaap, which are more to, their East Asian ancestry, the rest of us don't really know where our people came from originally. But over the last few years, the people are going to the archives to see how far they can trace back their family lineage,
Right.
as well as do those ancestral DNA tests. I think there'd be a lot less problems in this country if more white South Africans did these tests as well. Because like I say, at some stage they were outnumbered by 1 to 3. Yeah. So this is also basically how Afrikaans developed as a language. So the Dutch, they like to say we speak baby Dutch or drunk Dutch. So although the fundamentals of Afrikaans comes from Dutch, the Dutch naturally did not come here speaking Afrikaans. They came here speaking Dutch. So the enslaved community, the skilled laborers also had a contribution to the language. So it basically developed like a pidgin language, a form of Creole basically. But today they say what we speak in Cape Town is a slang and they speak the original version. But how can it be a slang if this is where it originated? But that's alright. Yeah, let's press one here. So the slave trade went on through both Dutch and British rule, and it was eventually abolished by the English on the 1st of December 1834, which was then a trend going through the empire at that stage. So quite a bit before you guys as a slave trade in America. And then you guys see that beautiful mural there? So that was painted in 2023. So every year we have a week-long international street art festival. So back in the day, the city of Cape Town was very anal about graffiti. They would paint over everything. So Baz are the company on the minibus. They're now trying to regulate the street art industry. They have gotten criticism though in certain communities that the art doesn't reflect, the community. So now they're trying to add more local elements. For example, Unjani, above the mountain, means how are you in isiXhosa, which is today our most spoken language in the West. We're almost there, but one more stop and then we go back. this one is a lifelike one.
They dress him.
Yes. So this is exactly where he stood and gave his iconic speech on his first day of freedom, 11 February 1990. So immediately from prison, this is February, guys, is the hottest month of summer. And just imagine the grand parade across the street there with thousands of people crammed together like sardines.
Yeah.
There was people hanging from the light fixtures, from the balconies, everywhere. Out of plain curiosity, you know, and excitement. Because back then the media was so filled with propaganda that a lot of people had no idea, you know, how Mandela looked anymore. To give you a better understanding, one of my older white colleagues is an Afrikaans lady, Marina. And she told me a story that in 1970 she went to London and then she attended a concert there. So she was jamming to the music, enjoying herself. Then the crowd started singing, "Free Nelson Mandela." And then Marina, as a South African, she had to go to someone next to her and ask, "Who is Mandela?"
White.
So imagine,
Wow.
she did not know who Nelson Mandela was, whereas the international community was protesting gracefully. Because, you know, everything was state-owned, controlled, the television stations, the radios. So a lot of white South Africans would have been oblivious as to what was going on outside of their bubbles until they started traveling. Even the music was controlled. Like, I'm like the love child in my family, so me and my siblings, we have very different experiences. Like, they were in the ANC's youth league, whereas I was the first one to go to a former Model C school, which is what we call a former white school here, basically. So my brother would say even the Bob Marley vinyls, all the happy songs would be on there, One Love, jams like that. Songs like the Redemption song, Stand Up, you would not find on an old South African vinyl. So it was literally that control. So the city was flooded with people. He was on extreme African time that day. He was extremely late, but no one cared because they were just, you know, in excitement and celebration. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. The man holding his microphone was a young Cyril Ramaphosa, which is our current president today. Yes, he was. Yes, yeah, he was holding his microphone that day on this side. He was hospitalized with pneumonia. He discharged himself. Nelson Mandela's driver got afraid to come into the city because he was scared the car was going to get thrown over with all of the people. So they actually turned around. Archbishop Desmond Tutu ultimately called him back and said, "No, come, the people are waiting." So eventually he made it up here. So it was a tremendously long speech. But the gist of it was, you know, Mandela said he's fought for the rights of Africans his entire life. He's fought against white domination, he's fought against black domination. Never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. Yeah. So that's where he gave his iconic speech on his first day of freedom, 11 February 1990. This year we celebrated 35 years since he's released from prison. And last year we celebrated 30 years since our first democratic election. Only 30 years, you know? Which might sound like a lot of time, but you know, it's not exactly. It's, you know, the first generation of your people now coming out of higher education, entering the workforce, you know. So we do need to talk about land reform and things like this, you know. Because, you know, where's the wealth? The wealth is in the land, you know. Who owns the land? So these are conversations that we need to have. But yeah, we are always very, very hopeful as a nation. Yeah. But yeah, this is where he gave his first speech, and this is also currently where Parliament sits since the fire. So if Parliament sits at the moment, it happens at the